Good morning. Good morning. And welcome to Who Am I? Who Am I? That forum where we come into this space and ask this question. Who am I? And we're just gonna come at the whole thing. Who am I? What is reality? What's the meaning of life? My mind has been racing with all kinds of interesting thoughts and ideas. And I've been trying to figure out how to transfer these interesting ideas into actual, how do I get them out of my head, through my mouth, and into the room? Sometimes I talk a little grandiose. Today I want to get smaller. I truly am humble as I ask this question, who am I? I believe that the object of the exercise in general, for all of us, is sustainability. Can you find your sustainability? Can we find our sustainability? I know I talk a lot about over unity devices in this format because part of my agenda, I'm going to air quote the word agenda. I don't really have an agenda other than my spirit really wants me to come into this studio and record my running thoughts, my stream of consciousness. And so I feel the impulse to come in and do it, and so that's why I do it. But I believe that a lot of the object of the exercise is I am part of mankind, and mankind has an impetus forward. We have an agenda. We have a mission. Our mission is to keep going. And not just until we choke the world and strangle in our own filth. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying we need to find our sustainability. We need to find who we are and how we fit in the world and be a little bit humble about it. We collectively have not figured that out yet. We are a superorganism, and as a superorganism, we have not been functioning sustainably or cooperatively. It's like a body at war with itself. That's an autoimmune disorder, and the organism is not going to last if they can't get past that moment. So what's the object of the exercise, would you ask? Well, sustainability. That's absolutely what it is. So let me just slow down a little bit. Now, you kind of have just got a big mouthful of... so I was going to reset my alarm and try to nap until 5 a.m. I thought, oh, I'm sleepy. I was sleeping so good. Now I'm awake, but I'd like to go back to sleep. And I don't need to do this. I don't need to finish this before 7 o'clock. So even 7:30, this is not a problem. So why am I up so early? So I lay down and I'm trying to sleep. And I'm thinking about all these thoughts, all these ideas are coming in my head. And I'm like, oh, okay, fine, I'll get up and do the show. Because they're all wonderful thoughts that should have just went straight from my head right out my mouth. So I sat there and I thought about some stuff. And then now jumping into the show, I find myself trying too fast to get to too many subjects. Because I'm trying to put in a nutshell all that stuff I was thinking. Who am I? Who am I? Very legitimate question. If you're a fan of the show, you know that I believe that we are genetically modified. However, I also want you to know that whether you believe it or not, that we are genetically modified, it doesn't really matter. Our design is our design. That little piece of it just kind of it confirms it to me that what was done to us speaks to the field of the universe in a really profound and mystical way. I don't think that's an accident. I think somebody knew that this was going to do this to us. Give us an inner being, give us the two minds. That's what it did to us. It gave us the two minds when at first we only had one. We were at one with Source, as all the other creatures who don't have a neocortex kind of mind, who don't have that overview physical mind aspect, who are just running on impulses. They feel an impulse from Source and they just act on it. They snarl at somebody, who's attacking their territory, and they leap to protect their child, or they move in the direction, they go looking for food, or they're always just moving from Source. They don't ever question it. They don't ever counter it. They can't go the opposite direction. So our design is our design, and the genetically modified thing, that's just kind of a fun aside. I think that with the growing credence that people are giving to the idea of extraterrestrial existence and contact and interaction with it probably becomes less phantasmagorical, less sci-fi. And did you know that our imagination is actually a download from our inner being? And it doesn't mean that we have perfectly translated it every time. As a matter of fact, we translate these downloads in all kinds of different ways. When it blends with our physical mind, it has all kinds of colors. But the vibrational sensation that we got as our imagination bloomed was a message we are receiving from our vibrational higher self. Our higher self is purely vibrational, but we can read it because we have vibrational reading equipment. What is it? It's our emotions. It's our emotions. Spock was wrong. They are not illogical. What's illogical is when you're operating backwards from a misaligned position. That right there is illogical. When you're moving on your negative self, it's illogical because your negative self is not you. Moving on the positive self, Mr. Spock, I'm sorry, is not illogical. The problem comes when, well, of course, it's when you move on off your negative self, but I had a thought for a second, and then yeah, we are not our negative selves. And so when we act from our negative self, I know what I was going to say. Possibly, he's thinking you don't want to go the manic depressive. You don't want to, because actually the manic, cheerful, party self, that kind of positive person. I don't know. There is kind of an issue with that because it also is not necessarily in alignment with what the emotion itself is, but perhaps what you're thinking about the physical world um, in that moment isn't right. So where are we in all of this? I mentioned over Unity devices, and I've been thinking about this because I talk about them a lot, and I always try to send you over to, watch the movie The Lost Century and How to Reclaim It. And then I wax poetic about over Unity devices and about our ability to plug into source energy and all that. And I'm not saying that any of this is easy. I'm not even saying that those over Unity devices are particularly common or would be easy to figure out. They aren't easy. That's how come every one of those people who invented one of them thought they were going to make $1 billion. Because it was clever and it was, outside the box. I am absolutely am not saying that it's easy. What I'm saying is they have told us it's not possible. And that's where I'm gonna have to object. It absolutely is possible. And this brought me to something else I was thinking about as I lay in bed this morning about what is possible and what is not possible. And what we think, where we've got ourselves short-circuited, where we've decided that, oh, that is not possible, and so we're just stuck with this, whatever, and why would you even bother thinking? So you got two schools of thought. One is, I'll tell you what our answer is, and then you can tell me whether you think it's possible. And then I'm going to tell you about what I think about you thinking whether it's possible or not. So what I think the answer is, incrementally, we call out for over Unity devices, or we just frickin' find the vault in the patent office, in the basement where they've hidden this shit. We go wring somebody's neck and say, you tell us where this stuff is. because the devices have already been invented. They've already been invented. But I guess if you pull those out of mothballs, then the government is going to be held liable for having destroyed those people's lives in the first place. For showing up in the middle of the night with the FBI and it's not the FBI. It's going to be some deeper op than that. I think the idea of the deep state probably is a valid point. But the deep state is probably not down at the MVD, and it's not the deep state. I think there probably is a deep state. But I'm not saying that. Actually, I have no idea what kind of quackpots that me saying something in using the word deep state, who that just put me in with, and what kind of crazy ass conspiracy theories that puts me in with. But I do know that we have a secret government. We do have a secret government. I've known it since the 80s. I remember watching shows on PBS, really wonderful shows. There was one called The Secret Government, and it was narrated by, it was hosted, narrated, I don't know what you call it, Bill Moyers. And it was about the Iran-Contra scandal and what this secret government had done. Well, all of the illegal operations, the drug dealing and weapons swapping and and I remember seeing footage of Oliver North and who was the other guy? Poindexter. Anyway, so that sort of made my energy trail off, didn't it? Okay, all right. So the answer to our problem is over Unity devices, incrementally filling in until we are fully cognizant of how source energy works so that we can jump into the flow of spin, generate our own, little mini black hole in a laboratory and harness it to conquer gravity and fully supply energy to any human being who wants free, clean energy to do whatever they want to do, to run their. That's the answer. Now, what I was pondering as I lay in bed this morning was, so Abraham tells us that ask and source answers, so that means that there is always an answer to a conundrum in front of you. There is always an answer. There is always a flow. There is always a direction for you to go. You never get short-circuited and just, this is right where you are. Not really. You can get that way if you're focused on the physical, but from the inside, that position is never true, and if you just follow that inside voice, it will lead you to the physical manifestation you're looking for too. So Abraham tells us that ask and it is given. Ask and it is given. And so you ask, have the faith to know that the answer has been given. Go find the answer. Well, so how do you find the answer? Well, first of all, in your heart, hold the frequency of the answer. So now you're abiding in a place where, in a way, you imagine the answer is already there. You are already in the answer. And you say, well, that's just nonsense. Why would I do that? Because that will, if I do that, then I'll never stir up the answer. Because the answer, the aggravation of the poking of the answer not being quite there is what makes you strive for the answer, right? Well, that's only if you believe that it isn't happening naturally. It is happening naturally. And so, if you just have faith, well, it's not just that. The thing is you have to be on the frequency of the answer. You have been imprinted with the question. You have asked. That rocket of desire has flown. You only have to just ponder for a moment the reality you've got. You don't have to sit there and just stew in the particulars unless you're looking to find a really detailed some answer to some specific something, dialed in really tight. Then maybe you could study the problem a little bit more. But if you're looking for a general answer to the problem, a fine perusal is a quick perusal is good enough. We spend far too much time looking at the problem. Somebody was saying that it was either Bashar or Wayne Dyer, because those were the two I was listening to the other day, talking about how you lightly hit on the problem and then you go immediately to the answer. So you dial into the frequency of the answer. Abraham says you ask and it's given. Dial into the answer, and then from that feeling, from you feeling the answer, now, you're still in a world where that answer isn't quite here. But from when you go into the place where the answer is, you're still standing in time where you were. But now you can feel the answer. And as you look around, it occurs to you what to do to get that answer. I mean, it just makes so much sense. All of this stuff makes so much sense. People who believe that we don't have an answer to our sustainability problem, that people who are skeptical of the idea of the over-unity devices or the ability to plug into source itself, that very concept, you know, because that's where I get excited, because I look around at the world I see and then I ponder this possibility. What? You're telling me that this is the paradigm I'm sitting in, and it is possible to get off of it, to get off of fossil fuels, that we could have done this all along, little by little by little, using fossil fuels as we needed, but incrementally moving away a long time ago? What? You're telling me that? And so that would get me really excited. Now I try to get somebody else excited about that. I try to paint the picture. I'm like, do you see where we are in time? Do you see it? Do you see it? Do you see why we're sitting here? You know, why we're sitting here in this moment of truth, almost, for the planet, for humanity. We're sitting here in this moment of truth. Wars still brewing here and there, our little dramas still going on, because we haven't really figured out who we are and why all this stuff tends to happen. You know, why did that Holocaust happen? You know, what was that about? Is it because because people can be so wicked? Is it that, well, people can be wicked. That is true. Without any emotion, I'm not going to inject any emotion into that, because that is a matter of fact. Human beings can be tremendously wicked. But you got to understand why. And you've got to understand the base design. And you got to understand who we are, where we came from, why we would be a bit awkward on the planet, why we need to do this intentionally. Because when we do it by default, so often we lock into our negative self, we focus on the condition, and then we go hammer away at the problem in a way that only creates more problem. Now, in a way, it also helps to clarify the problem, but does it? Last century, that Holocaust thing, so it did clarify the problem, but it's so big, such a big picture, and it's so deeply involved with things so personal and mystical to us as human beings, that it's taken us a century of studying that to even, scratch our head and go, what was the lesson to learn there? That human beings can be wicked? Well, human beings can be wicked, but you've got to understand that we are a field phenomenon. And I'm not kidding about that. We are not just ourselves. We are the whole field around us, and you can't separate you from the field around you, because the whole thing is made of plonks. I used to imagine this truth of us exchanging energy information, around us, just by imagining our atomic structure. You're exchanging atoms and electrons and energy fields and stuff with all of the objects around you, the chair I'm sitting in and the desk I'm sitting at and the microphone in front of me and all that. I'm exchanging, there is no separation between me and the world around me. And yet there really is a separation. It's like both. When you can see the great paradox, you're standing in a blessed position, because you're standing at you're absolutely at the balance point in the center, seeing both sides clearly, and you've got all choices available to you, and your flexibility factor is ultimate, which of course is a factor that makes you very that's a sustainability factor, flexibility, because it's adaptability. Flexibility is adaptability, and rigidity is ossification. The turning to bone, I think, is what ossification is. So, I believe that over unity devices are possible, and plugging into source energy is possible, and that would absolutely jive with Abraham's idea of ask and it is given, and now you just have to have faith there's an answer, and then rest in that frequency, and then just get the ideas. Well, I have done this, and this is what I keep coming to, is over unity devices and plug directly into source energy. That will go a long ways towards our sustainability. But there has to be a great call for peaceful education. Peace education. People have to be more educated about the frequency of peace, the meaning of it, the power of it, the data stream efficiency factor of it. There's all kinds of reasons why. The cooperative, co-creative potential factor of this frequency of peace. And we're going to have to really respect each other. Respect each other's spiritual boundaries. Spiritual boundaries. You might think that I'm imposing I'm not imposing boundaries. But even my ideas don't impose. I don't believe. I don't think so. We're going to have to see, every time I start a sentence with words like that, the energy just dries up, because that's not really everybody needs to, this is my position, is that the whole world needs to, I don't know. Well, I'll tell you what the world does need to do. The world needs to find its alignment with reality, with actual reality, with how the molecules actually move, with how the Plancks are actually flowing, with the laws of the universe, with the meaning of universal consciousness and our connection to all things, the holographic nature, the data exchange nature, the alignment with reality is an acceptable thing to call for, because I am not the arbiter of reality, and so the truth doesn't have to come through me anymore. I'm just standing here, little tiny me, pointing at the truth, just pointing at it. That's all. I'm just pointing at it. And I have noticed, now I'm quite hermetized. I don't connect to the world of drama quite the way I did anymore. I've kind of pulled back to myself, and I allow things, I allow historical information to come in and interesting information to come in, and whenever I feel an impulse to look at something or come across something, I allow it, but I don't by rote just absorb I used to watch the news all the time, is what I'm saying. I used to watch the media's version of reality on a regular basis. I used to imbibe it on a regular basis. And I don't almost at all anymore. I don't need a litany of all of the bad things that have happened, all of the people who have been murdered, and I don't need a litany of that. Now, all of that information needs to be accessible. If somebody wanted to go see, what had happened in that, it needs to all be there. I'm not saying that we should hide from things. I'm just saying that I don't need a regular, I don't appreciate that angle of news, because there's all kinds of ways to look at the news. I think that the biggest news that I have ever heard is the things I'm trying to tell you for hours on end on this show, namely Over Unity devices are possible, even though our mainstream education system still insists that they are not. Our mainstream, although apparently there some debate over at the Patent Office, they are still required to turn these all down. Energy devices come under a completely different formula of action, you might say, over at the Patent Office than all other kinds of devices. And we collectively should be, I should, so that is huge, 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 huge news. What other things are big? I had a whole bunch of things right there. Hold on one second. I'm going to pause, regroup, be right back at ya. Okay, here, I found it. It's the stuff I talk about every day. Okay, on the one, over Unity devices are possible. Gravity control is possible. We don't have to keep using this thrust to get past the resistance of gravity. We can understand what gravity actually is and work with it, you know? Make a little singularity and get the rocket ship to fall into the singularity that's at the nose of the craft or whatever it's... I guess I don't know enough to... So these are the big news events. Number one, we can get off fossil fuels. That's huge news. Number two, we were genetically modified. Oh my God, that's huge news. By extraterrestrials, probably 200,000 years ago, 200,000 years ago. Whenever anatomically modern humans appeared on planet Earth. We used to call them Cro-Magnon. We don't call them Cro-Magnon anymore. We call them... Anyway, big news. Big news. Also, even stuff like, did you know you have an inner being? Did you know that we're vibrational? Did you know that you have two minds? And that your emotions are a function of how those two minds are blending or not. When those two minds don't blend properly, you don't feel good, you call it negative emotion. But what's happened is you let a kind of negative energy take over you. You have allowed a demon to drive your vehicle. Your HBV, human being vehicle. That's what I call your physical body. That's your HBV. But your physical body is not separate from your vibrational self. It's just that, so you are absolutely anchored in your vibrational self. The thing is your vibrational self is totally not limited to you. See how, isn't that cool? I just thought of that. So you are anchored in your vibrational self. You are anchored to your vibrational self through your physical body. But your vibrational self, although anchored to you in your physical body, and absolutely all in with you and your desires and everything that you want to do and be and everything, she's right there with you. She's anchored with, you are anchored with her, but she is not limited to you. Because of her vibrational nature, she's vibrationally reverberating with all of the information of all of the field around you. That's why your inner being knows what you want, knows who you are, knows where you've been, why she knows everything. Because she's in touch with all things. And in touch, I'm air quoting that, but in touch with all things, literally touching all things, because you are the Planck field and the Plancks are all touching one another. Isn't that interesting? And then when they go into spin, you call it physical matter. You call it a reality. And then when they aren't in spin, when they're just there, that's the 0 point energy field. And it means that there's almost unlimited energy everywhere. Everywhere. The source of all things is everywhere. And the reason the source is everywhere, because what the source is everything reverberating, interacting, transferring data across the scales, large and small, all the time. All the time. Every plonk instant, every plonk is jiggling with every other plonk, exchanging information and energy and data, and it's just the coolest universe. And if we focus on how cool the universe is and how capable our design is, we can tackle the big problems that humanity has without beating the drum of our problems to death. That probably wasn't the greatest way to say it, but the way that we solve our problems is not to focus on the problem, but to focus on our capability. Now, when you go back and look at the problem, you realize how to fix it. So what are our problems? I take a few seconds every day and just remind us of our problems that have not gone away yet. And so I don't want to be blind to them. The solving of our problems is high up on my list, but I'm not actually in charge of solving the problems. I just kind of want people to understand how we're designed so that whatever place you're playing out there in the picture, you can place yourself. I don't know what you do in this super organism that we are. So the problem is sixth mass extinction. We aren't playing nice on the planet with the rest of the biofield. We are cutting the threads of too much biodiversity. Now I say that in a clinical way, but I am a huge animal lover. I am one of those people that just goes mad over the tiny little objects of the tiny little creatures of this world. We had a toad, a baby toad event a month ago or so, and it was just so magical. These teeny weeny little toads all over the place. And then now I've got these teenage toads all over in the yard, and I mean, not tons of them, but you run across them periodically. I've got a lot of vegetation. They're hiding all over the place. But so I say sixth mass extinction, and I say very clinical words, but the truth of the matter is that sixth mass extinction means tragedy after tragedy after tragedy after tragedy. All these blessed, gorgeous, amazing, diverse creatures that God hath wrought over millions of years, and we wink them out in a twinkle, through our ignorance, through our ham-handed, bull in a china shop kind of activities, because we don't know who we are. So sixth mass extinction, growing deserts, that's part of the sixth mass extinction too, by the way. Garbage island, continuing war, threat of autocracy, threat of authoritarian dictatorships and tyrants and cult leaders, and all of the things, the murder and the mayhem, the drama and the tragedies, the world poverty. Okay, that's enough on that's all the bad stuff. And now I won't talk about the bad stuff anymore. But that's what we need to solve. And The other big problem is that we have not, as a human organism, we have not reached sustainability. We don't know what sustainability looks like. Right now, there's arguments about, you know, a lot of people feel very called to keep moving down a technological path. And others are screaming, no, we've got to go back to our agrarian roots. We've got to go back to just being rural and, and they're both right. But the problem is the energy source. And the answer is this stuff that I talk about every day. It's over Unity devices to get us incrementally. And yeah, we've got really good energy infrastructure right now. We absolutely have really good energy infrastructure as far as we have really good fossil fuel infrastructure right now. And it is true, at this moment, we need to continue to use fossil fuels. Right in this moment, we need fossil fuel. But we could incrementally start bringing online devices that would get us, we need a little less and a little less and a little less and a little less. And as soon as we are able to do it, I'm not suggesting we do it so fast that it cripples us or harms us in any way. The reason I'm speaking this way is because there's often this debate, It's like when you talk about the need to get off fossil fuels, people start screaming, but we have to stay on fossil fuels right now because we don't have anything else. Well, they're not wrong about that, but I'm not wrong when I say we need to get off fossil fuels. But there is have you noticed that there is a big resistance? There is a resistance to getting off of fossil fuels. Hold on just a moment. I'm going to pause real quick. I've decided I'm going to quit answering that question in the room that was never actually asked about well, it doesn't matter. So, I believe we can get off fossil fuels, and I believe we can get on to source energy. Incrementally, it will have to be just clever ideas. I think it needs to be known that there has been resistance for reasons of national security, which I think needs to be examined. Our government's capability of keeping things from us for our own good needs to be questioned, because all of the existing structures are in bed together and embedded with one another and helping to rigidly support one another and disallow any move on our part to a more sustainable pattern for us to occupy. And so we've got to question that. If we aren't at sustainable, and yet everybody is all linked and locked into the structure that we've got, how is that going to work? It's going to be really painful when this comes crashing down. I do think that it is possible to throw this open in a way that we move towards it more gently, with more allowance to that motion forward. So I find myself a little bit lost in my ventures this morning. What am I actually here to say? Because I had at an angle on something a little while ago, and I drove myself into an eddy somewhere. It's sort of like all of the little channels on Lake Powell. When I was a teenager, my parents and I went on a camping trip. Their marriage was a bit on the rocks. Um, they were trying to work it out. They didn't fight or anything on that trip. I'm just remembering us being on that trip. And we were on a boat, and you go up the main channel, and Lake Powell is a really interesting lake. They flooded the lower part of Monument Valley, and there's all these canyons and fingers and stuff, so you can go up the main channel of the lake and then take a turn and then take a turn and then take a turn and then take a turn, and pretty soon, well, actually after just like a couple of those turns, you are off in absolute separate land, you know, away from everybody. There's all these little fingers. There's more coastline on Lake Powell than there is on the whole western coast of the United States. And that's kind of what I did. I lost the main channel, and I went down a side channel, and it was going to get good, but then instead of staying on the side channel connected to the main channel, I took a turn, and now I don't know where I am. So anyway, we were talking about all kinds of interesting things, you know, like the inner being, this vibrational self that you are. Oh yeah, okay. And we were talking about being made of Plancks and the nature of the universe. You know, our physical minds are actually very capable. But what they need to do, your physical mind needs to sort of relax itself, and very gently it needs to stay in alignment with what your inner being mind, your source mind, knows to be true about the universe. That's what your physical mind is perfectly capable of understanding the cosmos, but it does it with your inner being, not crossways to your inner being. If your physical mind is crossing the energy of your source mind, then your intelligence factor is way down. You're over there in your negative mind, you're bass-ackwards to reality, which has a kind of truth to it. It's 180 degrees, so just flip it and you got it. So there is good information there. It's just like on a negative of a photograph. There's good information there. As a matter of fact, all the information of the positive photograph is existent in the negative photograph. It's just reversed, you know? So it's still good information. It's just the opposite. And that's exactly what kind of energy you got going on. And that's exactly how, when you ask, it is given. It's that same kind of thing. You know, when the positive is, when that photo is taken, both the positive and the negative are existent right there. And it's the same thing with that cry, that desire for more that you felt. That feeling that you felt has a positive counterpart. And in the frequency of the positive counterpart of that negative emotion that you felt is contained all of the information that you need to bring that physical manifestation into reality. What I'm saying is, go find that frequency and rest in that frequency, and you will be given the impulses, the downloads, to walk towards what you want. You're being guided all the time by an inner being that knows what you want, knows what you want, knows how it merges with what the rest of the field wants, knows the point where we come together, knows the win-win position, knows who we really are, and is vested in all of our success. But you don't have to worry about sacrificing yourself for the rest of the field, because you've got, just follow your own inner being. The 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 universe does not want you to sacrifice yourself for it. The universe wants you to be yourself for it. That's what really makes, not you throwing yourself on a, oh, take me now because I love the universe. No, 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 no. Be alive. Be, find your joyful self. Find your calling. Find what you want to do. Follow your bliss. Follow your desire. But your aligned desire, not your misaligned desire. What does that mean? Well, know what your positive and negative minds really are. Don't take your negative mind so seriously. Know that your negative mind is not who you are. It might just be who you're being. It could be who you're being, but it certainly isn't who you are, because we all are positive beings. Every single one of us, even Hitler. And as a matter of fact, that's why that went so wrong. Because he wasn't being himself. He locked into his anti-self. And he focused on the world from an incorrect vantage point. And he absolutely did not know anything about his inner being, and he disallowed her every day, every moment. He locked into this other thing. And that actually has a momentum of its own. And it is a storm that, as it organizes and as it collects, we're going to be paying for this. We should be getting out ahead of it. And actually, we've been getting out ahead of it. Ever since that last big storm, the one from last century, the apex, the granddaddy of them all, where the whole world joined in. And then when we uncovered the rotten core at the heart of that energy event, the rotten core, the Holocaust is what I'm talking about. That's what it comes to. That's what it comes to. But we've been getting out ahead of that for the last century. And I talk about that sometimes. I had a big realization at one point that our activity in the field of entertainment, starting with movies and then television, radio and television, movies, radio, television, then on-demand television and the internet, and then, the explosion of everything from cat videos to, all of these celebrities, where you have so many different ways to put your consciousness now, so many different ways to get the news, so many different ways to understand your world. Now, there might still be the mainstream of, certain older generations who still watch regular television. But, the young people don't have regular television because they can't afford it. It costs too much to have the regular, so they don't even have that stuff. So what do they have? They have the streaming platforms, and they have their own their social media news feeds and word of mouth exchanging, and then the echo chambers that they're in, and so their minds are registering the world differently than we did. And that's actually a good thing, because we needed to change that. Because one of the reasons why we went into those world wars is because we just had a few channels of expression of who we were and what was going on. And those channels were saying, those people are responsible, and we're angry about that, and we're threatened by it, and we're going to get after them. And we banded together and focused in a certain direction and acted from our negative emotion, from our anger, from our fear, from our hatred, whatever. We all got together and we all agreed that us and them was a valid paradigm. And I'm telling you right now, there is no us and them. It's only mankind, and we straddle the planet, and there's only one of us, and we are a superorganism, and we are absolutely connected to one another. Almost without exception, we are connected through, airline travel and energy and financial infrastructure, across internet lines. We're connected through the circulation of material goods on the what do I call it? The pipe, the supply chain. The supply chain of humanity, the goods and services and information streaming around the planet. We are connected. There is only one of us. We are mankind, and we have to find our sustainable way or suffer the consequences. And I'll tell you what those consequences are going to be. Watching the sixth mass extinction is not pretty. And your ability to turn away from it, is limited. But I don't know why I'm trying to find the right words for that. But talk about ugly. Watch when humanity goes extinct. That's at least 8 billion tragic stories of horror that I have no interest in experiencing. I think I was probably engaged in what happened last century and totally over it. Do not want to do that in any way, shape, or form. I am very interested in us getting out ahead of our problems, out ahead of whatever crap we might have coming down the pike at us. As we continue to do things unsustainably. And unsustainable means it will not be allowed to continue. And I'm not talking about, an angry God stepping in and saying, you will not do that anymore. Although that's like a metaphor for what's going to happen. Because if it's not sustainable, it means literally you cannot sustain it. It's like if you have 1,000 apples in a basket and you are eating 100 a day or 10 a day and you want it to last for the rest of your life. Well, it's not going to. You can't sustain life on that basket of apples for the rest of you can't do that. It won't sustain. The unsustainable won't sustain. And we either get out ahead of that and understand it and go a better direction, or we will find ourselves crashing on our ass in a really painful way that I have no interest in being a part of. As the children starve, as all of the last really beautiful, cool, natural creatures are snuffed out by people trying to capitalize because they want to tag into the supply chain of humanity, and the only way that they have to do it is to kill that last elephant, and take her tusks and put it on an increasingly constrained, market for, there's always those few people, there's hardly any ivory anymore. Well, I must have it then. I'll pay $1 million for, or the rhino horn, or the tiger's testicles, or whatever actually I think it's tiger's penis. It's disgraceful. It's disgraceful. But I don't want to go on about, how human beings are bad. Human beings are not bad. It's just that desperate human beings without the resources that they need to continue their lives forward in a joyful and abundant manner can get quite destructive. Mean, petty, small, ugly, evil, wicked, whatever you want to call it. We can be horrible, but that's not who we really are. Who we really are is actually quite breathtakingly wonderful. And so every time you see someone being less than that, know that they are not an otherness. They are not a different kind of human being. Know that they are just, at the moment, entangled in their own, they've gotten their own equipment tangled up. And they are standing backwards to their own true nature. They are backwards to their true desires, and that's when desire starts looking twisted, and people start, talking about how desire is of the devil. We used to watch a show on Netflix. We stopped kind of in the middle of it. There's a few more seasons. We haven't finished it. Called Lucifer. And he can spot who you are by getting into your desires. He pulls it out through his eyes turn red, and he locks onto your eyes, and he gets you to admit what your deepest, darkest desires are. And every once in a while, some people's desires, they aren't twisted. Their desire is in alignment with who they are, and in alignment with the field around them, of which they are embedded participants also. You are not just yourself. You are the field around you also. So you will not be happy until you are in alignment with the field around you. Playing lovingly with the human beings around you, playing lovingly with the non-human beings around you. You're not going to be happy until you're doing that. Now, you may not even realize that. You may ooh, I don't like non-human creatures. They're dirty. They're scary. You may be there, but if you are, you're not in alignment. But don't worry about that. That just means that subject is not a good one for you. But go find who you really are, whoever you are. Go find where life lights you up, because that's where the field wants you to be, wants you to glow, wants you to flow. Follow your bliss. Follow that energy that feels so good. Now, Bashar has some interesting advice about following your excitement. So you use your physical mind to, in physical specificity, as much as you want, as much as this energy still flows in this direction when you do it. Get excited about physical reality. Get excited about it. And lock into the specifics and get excited. Get yourself excited. And then this is the key part. And this is the tricky part where people don't put these two things together, and they don't realize that they go together. You get excited about it, and then absolutely disconnect from the outcome. Detach yourself utterly from the outcome. And then engage physically and detach from the outcome, and engage physically and detach from the outcome. Engage joyfully and detach from the outcome. Engage eagerly and detach from the outcome. And then as you keep moving through this and doing this, observe the outcome and you'll find that the outcomes are playing out in your favor. Hold on a second, I gotta take a break. I will be right back. So, one of the reasons I thought that was interesting was, so it's easy enough to detach. You can just detach from the world. I'm not going to involve myself with it anymore. Or you can get deeply into it, but most people don't understand the art of doing both of these things. And I'm not saying that I'm a master of it at all. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying, oh, that's what you're supposed to do, and I'm working on it myself. I'm not a master. I'm just little old me. But I ask this question, who am I? But I think that the answer for all of us is that as a species, we're really cool. And the possibilities for our future are really, really blessed. Do you believe that when you ask, it is given? Or not? Are you sitting there stubbornly in a place insisting that there isn't an answer to our energy problems? We just have to keep burning fossil fuels. There just isn't an answer to that. We'll just have to keep killing the planet as we burn fossil fuels. Gee, I wish it was different. So, do you have faith or not? I think I have faith. There is an answer. We have asked. It is given. We need to get into a position of expecting that an answer exists and insisting that we go find it. Well, I think it's what I say all the time. We need to understand our actual physical universe, our physical vibrational universe. We need to understand how it really works. We need to understand source energy. We need to understand who we are in order to hit that holy grail of all holy grails, freaking sustainability, where all the nations of the world are not impoverishing themselves in order to make sure that they continue to have the biggest, baddest military, because we still have to, there's the potential that there will be an otherizing. Well, there is no us and them. There is no other. There is only us. We are mankind. And we are a single morphogenetic field unto this planet. And we need to figure that out. I actually think that we naturally know this and that we all want to be this way. I've done some world traveling. Earlier this year, we went all the way to the other side of the planet. We went to New Zealand by way of Fiji. Spent a whole week in Fiji. And then 2 weeks in New Zealand. And oh my gosh, what an exciting trip that was. But it just told me that this is what human beings love to do. We love to visit one another. We love to taste one another's food and look at one another's wildlife situations. And we are a superorganism. There is no us and them. There is only one of us here, and she is mankind. I came up with that one day before yesterday. Actually, I said something about yesterday. I didn't do a show yesterday. Instead, I got up very, very early and we went and played golf. I had a birdie. I had a real, genuine birdie. I hit a 5-iron on a 110-yard par 3. Almost went in. Wouldn't that have been great? I had a hole-in-one. But I left it about 5 foot short and made the putt. Oh my gosh. How exciting. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. I just didn't do a show since day before yesterday. And now I'm trying to remember what it was I was thinking about. Who am I? Who am I? Who am I? Who am I and what am I talking about? What is going to be the salvation of us? Well, the salvation of us is going to be to truly be in alignment with who we really are. And our inner beings will guide each and every one of us individually into a position of, into a blending of harmony and peace and joy, joyful abundance. I believe that's in our future. Where is this going to come from? Well, I think that the scarcity paradigm right now is an artificial one. I don't think that scarcity is actually natural. However, well, no, let's don't say however. I think that what's causing it is our scarcity energy paradigm. And that when every single human being can control their own climate, so all of a sudden now I don't have to worry about a hurricane knocking out my ability to keep my house comfortable, even if I live in Texas or Arizona or wherever is hot that really needs air conditioning, or at least a fan blowing, blowing your sweat dry somewhere. It's going to change the game. It's going to absolutely change the game. And I believe that the way the universe is, I believe that it makes sense that a solution exists. Of course a solution exists. A solution always exists. Sometimes you have to back out of the question a ways before sort of like, hold on, I'm going to see if I can come up with an analogy. No, I can't. My mind is oatmeal mush, and I'm not even going to try. Where does this leave us? Where does this leave us? I've gotten on a jag lately. I've been watching Hitler shows because I find that whole paradigm so very, very interesting. And I don't actually think that, although absolutely Hitler was a monster, there's no question about that. But in a way, he really wasn't. He was just a severely misaligned person. He was locked into his negative self. And then he played that. He really was the Antichrist. But it's funny to think of that as more of a mathematical abstraction, a geometrical abstraction, as opposed to thinking of it as, some sort of mythological entity. So now I don't know what I want to say today. I'm just sitting here resting in this who am I? I have my whole show. I haven't really been doing the show the way I had been doing it because I if you notice the last couple of times, I haven't even really changed the slides, hardly at all. At the end, I finally give in and show a couple of slides, but it's because my slides are the same, I was starting to feel like my show was the same. Although my show isn't the same. I say different things every day. But my general position is always the same. We need to freaking find our sustainability. We need to understand who we are. We need to understand how it works. We need to understand how our equipment works. We need to understand how the universe works. We need to understand how the quantum field works, the divine matrix, the holographic universe. We need to understand the black hole structure and the spinning space-time and all of that kind of stuff. We need to understand all of it for a couple of reasons. In order to understand our own divine autonomy. Our own divine autonomy over our individuated point of spin, as well as how we tag in, how we also share spin collectively with all the rest of the field. That's our source aspect, is how our spin connects to the whole field. And then my divine autonomy is my own control over my own spin, my own apparatus that is spinning and moving through time, my being of light, my soul energy, who is, by the way, who I really am. That's who I really am. That's the part of me that continues. That's the part of me that's connected to everything. That's there is a source of good. There isn't really a source of bad, a source of evil. Evil, it's not so much evil as, well, it is evil, but it's what happens when you get your own equipment turned backwards. Now a shadow appears that isn't really you. But if you let this shadow drive your vehicle, then you have contributed to demons walking the land. Now, that's just a nice, dramatic, cool, mythological sort of way of looking at it, but it's mathematical and abstract and geometrical and it's matter of fact. It's not, you don't have to inject the dramatic mythological assignments. You don't have to do that. But you can, especially if you enjoy that sort of thing. But it is what it is. You cross your own energy stream. You have a positive energy stream that you are. And that's your source self. And then you have your physical self. And they both have a mind. They are two minds. Oh, I hate to do this. It's these two minds. It's these two minds. I can't help it. I need a better picture than this, but that's what they are. They need to be two spinning tornadoes. The only reason I made them apertures is because they're also, because they relate to a focus within your own consciousness, within your own physical mind. Physical and non-physical mind, your mind's eye and your physical mind. Anyway, I should probably go find vortices instead. A great big, huge vortex that is the source one, and then another one right next to it, a smaller tornado that's your physical mind, and somehow do a picture showing how these two they're tethered together, but one is completely they're independent from one another and yet tethered. That's what it is. They're independent and yet tethered. So your source mind is thinking all about the actual physicality of what's going on around you, where all the atoms actually are, how they are moving, what their temperature, their velocity, their vector direction, their everything. Your source mind knows the flow of all motion, knows where everything is. And the reason it does is because every plonk, 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 every plonk instant, the whole field is updating itself through the Planck field, this reverberation of information exchange, which brings me to this picture, which is a new one that I've added to my program. This shows how a hologram is created. The hologram is this little green apple over here on the plate. And the red apple is the real apple that was scanned. And then you can see how the one beam hits the apple and then goes to the plate. And the other one just gets redirected to the plate. And when those two laser beams hit one another, when they interfere with one another, that's what scatters all the information across all the field. And it does it through an interference pattern. Those two laser beams, they come back and interfere with one another, and it makes waves, and everywhere in the wave, all of the information is now scattered. And this is how the universe is doing it. This is how the universe is holographic. It's holographic. It is responding to you. And your feelings are telling you warmer, colder, go in the right direction, go in the wrong direction. Good thought. Excellent. Keep thinking that thought. I wish this wouldn't do this. Hold on. Hold on. Oh, good. Sorry. Something just appeared on my... It was part of my cleaner, my computer cleaner software. Wanted me to do something. So anyway, that's how the universe is doing it. And you know, all of the old traditions, all of the old stories about, you know, God is love and God knows everything and God is omnipotent and omniscient, knows everything, can do anything, can be anything, it's this field. It can do anything. It can be anything. It's like the Play-Doh, the superfluid, the super plasma that can be anything. And what does this can be anything? What does it ride on? What would determine where it goes? Well, the desires of all of the beings in the field. That's what is moving the whole thing forward. Isn't that interesting? So where does that leave me? Where does that leave me? What do I do with my life, and what is the meaning of everything? Well, just keep doing what you're doing, whoever you are, but follow your joy. If you're doing some things and you hate some of the things you're doing, I'd go in and revisit some of that, because you're not doing yourself or the universe any favor as you sacrifice yourself for whatever. You hate this thing, you hate it, you hate it, you hate it, but you feel like you have to do it. Ooh, there's something very wrong going on there. When we find our own sustainable path, we will find that there was no one standing over us, forcing us to do, whatever. We will be doing what we do because we want to do it, because we feel like it needs to be done. No, because we want to do it. So it looks like I'm coming up on an hour and 23 minutes. I want you to know, whoever you are listening to me, I feel very humble about my position. I have come to understand the laws of the universe, and I'm getting a better handle on who I am and how this functions. I don't mean to be pedantic or overbearing in any way. we are doing so much. There is so much going right in the world. There is so many places where we are in alignment, where we are already doing exactly as we should be doing. It's only in these places where we do not understand the meaning of our negative mind that we go awry. But there is so much. That's why the world has gotten to where it has. You know, we fly around the world and we move around the world, and there's so many people doing so many things around the world right now. They're playing, they're laughing, they're loving, they're raising their families and enjoying, they're camping, they're golfing, they're cruising, there is so much going right in our world. And you would notice that everywhere where it seems to be off, you can spot where we are in misalignment with ourselves, our inner being, source energy, actual the reality of the matrix, the actual reality of the matrix that we are embedded in and inextricably a part of. It's just misalignment. It's not, the world's not broken. The world is not, the healing that we need is energy realignment in our minds and in our hearts. Our heads and our hearts locked in together. That's what we need. Not otherizing of each other, not us and theming, not getting carried away with my negative mind. And I don't even care what somebody does. There is no reason to retaliate with nuclear bombs, or what we need to do is we need to pull humanity back into alignment spiritually, which by that I mean in frequency. Well, there's a lot of things I mean by that. I just don't want to be a part of sixth mass extinction and the extinction of humanity. I don't want to be a part of that because that's going to be ugly. It's going to involve my grandchildren. It's going to involve everybody's grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And it's not going to be pretty. The wonderful, wonderful, beautiful, amazing universe, the world that I grew up in, is at risk. But we shouldn't focus on the at risk. We should go, oh, okay, I see the risk. And then focus on how cool we are and how capable we are, and then use our capabilities and go out and make this world a better place. Let's build a smarter world, people. Let's build a smarter world. I'm ready for that, IBM. Every time I pull up to a traffic light, you know, and there's nobody coming any direction, you sit there and wait 2 or 3 minutes. You're like, man, I am ready for that smarter world already. We have the most amazing world coming up on our future. And it's not going to be that post-apocalyptic hellscape that many Hollywood directors imagine. It's going to be something quite wonderful, quite wonderful. We just need to focus that direction and bring it into being, knowing that we can. And how do we do this? Well, I think we need to know who we are. That's all. That's all. And so to that, I think I'm gonna stop at an hour and a half today because I find my energy is a little bit disjointed. I'm still on the same right track. So many things to talk about. And yet, I don't know what I'm doing. You know that? I don't know whether I'm getting better and better and better and better at a single presentation, or whether I'm getting better at riffing about everything just from a relaxed and comfortable, non-resistant position. Because the power of non-resistant thought is quite powerful. I could talk, and perhaps I should get in and talk about the nature of human consciousness and what your physical mind is really supposed to be doing. I started this earlier. The physical mind is absolutely capable of keeping up with the source mind, but you have to understand that your physical mind is not the primary one, that your source mind is actually the one who knows, and your physical mind is the one who is trying to make space big enough so that it can accommodate what your source mind actually knows. Your physical mind is the one taking the instruction. It's not the one leading the way. Excuse me. Shoot. I was going to swat that fly. Divine autonomy. I brushed on that one really briefly, but there's a whole set of information behind the concept of divine autonomy. It has to do with you have control. You have autonomous control over the direction, the speed, the trajectory of your own life. You have 100% control over it. You may not be taking 100% control, but you have 100% control. You are doing to yourself everything that's happening to you. It looks like there are players on the outside, and in a way there are, but it's because the whole universe is you, and it's all sort of reflecting you. So you are a being of light flying through the universe. And you are going one of two directions at all times. Now, as I say flying through the universe, you're flying through the universe as you're walking through the grocery store. And at any given time, there is only one of two directions that you could be going. And there's only two speeds. Well, there's actually more speeds, but there's fast and slow. And then there's going in the direction you want to go, or going in the opposite direction of what you want to go. There's only those two directions. Don't worry about the other fine details. They will fill in. It doesn't matter at this point. Know that from this position, there's only two directions, and there's basically two speeds. Fast or slow, in the direction of wanted, or in the opposite direction of wanted. Those are the only two things. Now, how can you determine which direction you're going and whether you're going fast or not? Fast or slow? How can you tell? Okay, well, if you're... So the... which direction you're going is what emotion are you in? Are you in a positive emotion or in a negative emotion? If you're in a positive emotion, that's your signal coming from your source that you're clear, that you're moving in the direction of the rest of you. And so that's what the positive emotion is a signal of, that you're moving forward. Now, if you're facing the opposite direction, that means you're in negative emotion. If you're in negative emotion, that's what the negative emotion is trying to tell you. You are facing backwards. You've gotten yourself twirled around, and you're facing in the opposite direction of what you want. And that's what the negative emotion is. Now, how can you tell about the speed, how fast you're going? Well, this is my favorite slide to show this one, and it's really nothing at all. It's your four general states of being. If you're in the specifics are, I really should make a better slide of this because I could really illustrate this. Your specific is the accelerator. The general is your decelerator. So if you're in a negative state of any sort, don't be specific. Don't be more specific. Don't get specific. Back off of the specific. Yeah, if I had a different slide, it would illustrate this differently to me, and I would describe it differently to you, because it's kind of convoluted. I came at it from a different thing here. There's four general states of being here, I say. There's specific negative, general positive, specific positive. And what you're looking for is any positive. And when you're in that positive, go ahead and go specific. Oh my gosh, the towies are loud out there today. That is a towie. It's a little bird. I should show you a picture of it, since you can hear her so clearly. So I went and got the picture of the bird, and there it is, but she's flown off. Or he's flown off, whoever was out there. Actually, I think that might still be the towie out there. Although they're not doing the normal I don't know. It doesn't matter. Who am I? We've made it past an hour and a half. I think I'll come back tomorrow and do another show. Not only that, I may be able to put in an extra show tomorrow I'm going to have a conversation with that special person that I have done extra editions of the show. The shows where I have somebody in the studio with me talking about these same things. Who am I? And how does it work to be a human being? And what is it? How do you put all these things that I'm talking about together to make sense of your life? We'll talk more about that. Every day, that's what we're going to talk about. Who am I? Where did I come from? Where am I going? How do I work? How do I function? What is my design? My cosmic design? And how does that line up with what we know to be true about physics and this universe? Now, I know that I'm not an I'm so not an expert. It's just not even funny how not of an expert I am. I am a general. I understand generally how everything fits together, and I understand generally. But I think that's important. I think we all need to get back to the general. We need to understand how things generally fit together, and then go in from there to the specifics of how they work. And this is certainly true of source energy. We need to understand generally what this source energy is, how it works, so that we can use it to achieve sustainable, peaceful, joyful lives. Because that's what I'm looking for. To that end, I'll be bowling later today, and then just taking care of my life, as you will be doing, as I'm sure. So I guess I'll leave it at that. There's so much more to say, but I really don't know. I don't know exactly what my who I'm talking to. I know that I'm doing this for myself, but what am I doing for myself? I'm trying to put it all together so that I can understand who I am. Who am I? Where did I come from? How do I live my life? How do I get out ahead of crap that my people are not understanding? You know? I don't want to live on fossil fuel any longer because a storm could come along and take me out. And then I don't have power. And now I live in either it's hot sometimes of the year or it's cold other times of the year. And now I can't interact with the rest of the world because I don't have power to run my modem, to run my computer, to run my internet, to run my all of that. I want to be more sustainable. I want to be more secure. That's part of what I feel. But then also I get really excited because we are so cool. There's everything about us is capable of overcoming any of these difficulties that I mention every day. Our problems are large, but the equipment that we have to hand is perfectly capable of achieving sustainability, of conquering our issues, of cleaning up the planet, re-gardening Eden, all of those things, taking off and hitting the galaxy, becoming a galactic being and not just an earthbound one. All of these things are in our future. They really are. And it's because of that I do this show. It's in service of that I do this show. Like I said before, do not sacrifice yourself for the whole. Live for the whole. Be yourself for the whole. Authentically as you can. Know who you are. And we'll come back tomorrow and talk about it some more. And I hope that you will be with me. So until then, as always, I love you. Whoever you are me. We are us. There is only one of us. And until tomorrow, please, may the source be with you.